Some people rise to greatness through hard work. Others are chosen, set apart by destiny, carrying a divine purpose that few can understand. These individuals inspire, lead, and command attention. People look up to them, follow their words, and trust their guidance. But what happens when a chosen one starts seeing themselves as above others? When their confidence turns into arrogance? When their faith in their calling blinds them to their own flaws? History is filled with figures who claim to be chosen by God. Some used their gifts to uplift and heal, while others let their power consume them. They became untouchable, believing they could do no wrong. At first, they were seen as saviors, but over time, their actions revealed something darker: pride, manipulation, and a thirst for control. Was their divine favor a gift, or did it turn into a curse? In this video, we'll uncover the fine line between true leadership and destructive narcissism. How does a chosen one go from being a beacon of light to someone obsessed with their own reflection? What signs reveal when power has gone too far? And most importantly, how can we learn from these stories to recognize the truth? Stay with us till the end as we break down this fascinating journey. And if you love deep conversations about spirituality and power, don't forget to join the community, show your love, and stay connected, because the truth is always worth exploring together. Some people live ordinary lives, blending into the world without much attention. Others stand out, not because they want to, but because they are chosen. They are different. They carry something special, something powerful. People believe they have a purpose greater than the rest. They call them leaders, prophets, visionaries. They say they are blessed by God. At first, it seems like an incredible honor. To be chosen by God means having a mission, a path that others do not. But this is not a simple gift. It is a heavy responsibility. Every action, every word, every decision is watched closely. People expect perfection. They expect wisdom, strength, and leadership at all times. There is no room for mistakes, and that is where the burden begins. Imagine walking through life knowing that every choice you make will be judged. Imagine feeling like you must always be right, always strong, always worthy of the title, chosen. The pressure grows, doubts creep in. What if I fail? What if I am not good enough? What if people see my weaknesses? Some chosen ones remain humble, using their position to serve others, but others take a different path. They start believing that their divine favor makes them better than those around them. The weight of their role turns into a shield, protecting them from criticism. They stop listening to others. They stop questioning themselves. And that is where the danger begins. When someone believes they are untouchable, their purpose can become twisted. They may start controlling those who follow them. They may see themselves as not just chosen by God, but almost equal to God. What started as a mission turns into something selfish. Being chosen is not about power, it is about responsibility. The strongest leaders are not the ones who demand respect, but the ones who understand the true weight of their calling. From the moment someone is called chosen, everything changes. People treat them differently. They listen to their words with deep respect, follow their advice without question, and believe they carry a wisdom beyond normal understanding. Their presence alone demands attention. At first, this feels like a blessing. Imagine walking into a room and seeing eyes filled with admiration. People whisper about you, not in doubt, but in awe. This one is special. This one is favored by God. This one is different from us. But what happens when that power takes root in the mind? Slowly, the chosen one starts seeing themselves the way others do, above, beyond, untouchable. Their words carry more weight, their actions are rarely questioned, and soon they start believing they are not just guided by God, but almost equal to God. They stop listening to advice, convinced they always know best. They reject criticism, believing it is beneath them. This is where perception becomes a dangerous illusion. The world treats them like they are divine, and they start acting like they are. Their choices are no longer questioned, no matter how wrong they are. Even their mistakes are seen as part of God's plan. At this point, the line between true faith and self-importance disappears. The mission they once carried with humility now serves their own image. Power is not always given. It is fed by those who believe in it. And when a chosen one drinks too much from the cup of admiration, they risk losing the very thing that made them special in the first place. True greatness is not in being worshipped, but in remembering why they were chosen at all. A chosen one walks with confidence. They believe in their mission, stand firm in their faith, and move with a sense of purpose that others admire. This confidence is necessary. Without it, they wouldn't be able to lead, inspire, or carry out the role they have been given. But confidence has a twin, one that hides in its shadow: arrogance. At first, the difference is clear. Confidence is knowing your purpose, but arrogance is believing you are above others because of it. Confidence allows a leader to stand strong in their beliefs, but arrogance makes them ignore any voice that challenges them. Confidence inspires humility, but arrogance demands submission. The shift happens slowly. A chosen one starts by believing they are guided by God. Their words hold weight. Their decisions shape the lives of those who follow them. People praise them, admire them, trust them without question. And then something changes. Instead of seeing themselves as a servant of God, they begin to see themselves as the voice of God. Their thoughts are no longer inspired by divine wisdom. They believe their thoughts are divine wisdom. Criticism is dismissed as jealousy. Advice is ignored as doubt. They see themselves as untouchable, unquestionable, beyond correction. The once humble leader becomes a ruler, not a guide. This is the danger of unchecked ego. Confidence, when rooted in faith, builds a leader, but when faith is used as a shield for pride, it destroys them. The moment a chosen one stops questioning themselves is the moment they stop walking in true divine purpose. Because the greatest leaders are not those who demand obedience, but those who never forget they too are only human. There is a moment when admiration turns into something dangerous. A chosen one is lifted so high by those who believe in them that they start to feel untouchable. They are no longer just a leader, a teacher, or a guide. They are someone who can do no wrong. At first, this belief does not seem harmful. After all, they have worked hard to reach this position. They have endured struggles, proven their strength, and shown wisdom that others admire. People seek their advice, follow their words, and trust their decisions. But what happens when this trust becomes absolute? When no one dares to question them anymore? Slowly, the chosen one starts believing that every thought they have is correct. Every action they take is justified. Every decision they make is part of a divine plan. They do not see mistakes because in their mind, they cannot make mistakes. Anyone who challenges them is seen as ignorant, envious, or even evil. Criticism is no longer something to consider, it is something to reject. This is where the danger begins. Without criticism, there is no growth. Without doubt, there is no reflection. Without people willing to speak the truth, even the most gifted leader can become blind to their own flaws. And when someone believes they are above correction, their decisions become reckless. They may push people too far, demand unquestioning loyalty, or make choices that harm others without realizing it. Their actions may start serving their own pride rather than the greater good. And because no one around them is willing to challenge them, they continue down this path without resistance. History has shown the fall of many great leaders who once stood as symbols of faith, wisdom, and power. Not because they were never chosen, but because they forgot the responsibility that came with it. The moment a chosen one stops listening, stops questioning, stops allowing themselves to be challenged, that is the moment their divine purpose begins to crumble. True leadership is not about being untouchable, it is about being accountable, because even those chosen by God must remain humble enough to hear the truth, even when it is difficult to accept. At first, being chosen feels like an honor, a divine purpose, a higher calling, a path that few can walk. The Anointed One moves forward with confidence, believing they have been set apart for something greater. They see the world differently, understand things others cannot, and carry a responsibility that weighs heavy on their shoulders. But as time passes, something begins to shift. Being set apart also means being alone. The very thing that makes them special starts creating distance between them and the people around them. Others admire them, but they no longer relate to them. They respect them, but they do not question them. Conversations become one-sided, with people either blindly agreeing or keeping their true thoughts hidden. The chosen one finds themselves surrounded by followers, but few true companions. Then comes the paranoia. When no one challenges them, the chosen one starts wondering who is secretly against them. They begin to question people's intentions. Does this person truly care for me? Or do they just want to be close to power? Are they offering advice? Or are they trying to bring me down? Every disagreement starts to feel like betrayal. Every bit of criticism starts to feel like an attack. The isolation grows stronger. They detach from reality, living in a world where their thoughts are absolute, their vision is unquestioned, and their position is untouchable. They trust fewer and fewer people, convinced that no one understands the weight they carry. In their attempt to protect themselves from those they see as enemies, they push away even the ones who truly care. This is the tragic side of being chosen, a leader with no one to confide in, a guide with no one to guide them, a powerful figure trapped in their own loneliness. The Anointed One may be set apart, but if they do not stay grounded, they risk being lost entirely. Some chosen ones appear humble. They speak softly, avoid attention, and present themselves as mere servants of a higher purpose. They insist they are nothing special, that they are only doing God's work. They reject praise on the surface, but deep down, they crave it. Their humility is not true humility. It is a carefully crafted mask. This is false humility. At first glance, it looks like genuine servanthood. The chosen one does not openly seek power, but they still want influence. They do not demand loyalty outright, but they expect it. They claim to be nothing more than a vessel of divine wisdom, yet they grow irritated when people do not listen to them. The difference between false humility and true servanthood is subtle, but it is there. A truly humble leader does not need to remind others that they are humble. They do not use self-deprecating words to appear modest while secretly expecting admiration. They do not act as if they are above human desires while still manipulating others into feeding their ego. False humility is about control. It keeps people obedient without them realizing they are being controlled. When a leader constantly downplays their authority, followers feel guilty for questioning them. They are so humble, they would never lead us astray. The chosen one becomes untouchable, not through arrogance, but through the illusion of selflessness. True servanthood, however, is different. A true servant does not seek control. They serve because it is the right thing to do, even when no one is watching. They accept correction, admit their flaws, and do not fear accountability. They do not manipulate others into loyalty. They earn it through integrity and love. A chosen one must ask themselves, is their humility genuine, or is it just another tool for power? Because in the end, false humility is still just another form of narcissism in disguise. At first, a chosen one walks with purpose, knowing they have been called for something greater. They speak with wisdom, guide others with humility, and remind themselves that they are only a vessel for the divine. Their role is to deliver a message, not to become the message itself. But then something changes. Over time, admiration turns into worship. Followers hang on every word, treating their teachings as unquestionable truth. Each decision they make is seen as divinely inspired, and soon the chosen one starts believing it too. They no longer feel like a messenger, they are the message. Their words are no longer guided by God, they are the voice of God. This is where the danger begins. A true messenger understands they are human, flawed, and capable of mistakes. They recognize that their wisdom is limited and that they must always seek truth beyond themselves. But when a chosen one starts believing they hold divine authority, they stop questioning themselves. They begin making decisions not based on wisdom, but on the illusion of absolute certainty. Criticism is dismissed as rebellion. Doubters are labeled as faithless. Anyone who challenges them is seen as an enemy, not just to them, but to God himself. The chosen one starts demanding blind obedience, claiming that to disobey them is to disobey the divine. This is no longer faith, it is delusion. History is filled with leaders who once walked in truth but fell into the trap of self-deception. What starts as a calling can turn into a dangerous obsession with power. A chosen one must always remember they are not the source of wisdom, only a vessel for it. Because the moment they forget that truth, they no longer serve God, they serve only themselves. A chosen one does not rise in isolation. They are lifted by those who follow them, praise them, and believe in their divine calling. At first, followers may be drawn to their wisdom, leadership, or spiritual insight. But over time, admiration can turn into something dangerous, blind devotion. And blind devotion is what fuels narcissism. When followers refuse to question, when they treat every word as sacred, and when they silence doubts in the name of faith, they create an illusion of infallibility. The chosen one no longer hears honest feedback, only agreement. They no longer face accountability, only obedience. Each compliment, each act of worship, each unchallenged decision builds their belief that they are beyond ordinary human flaws. At first, it may seem innocent. A leader says something questionable, but no one speaks up. They must have a reason for saying that. A decision feels wrong, but followers convince themselves it's not our place to question. Over time, a dangerous cycle begins. The chosen one grows more confident in their own superiority, while the followers grow more fearful of doubt. Even when red flags appear, loyalty keeps them silent. This is how power turns into corruption. History has shown countless examples of once humble leaders who became consumed by their own image, but the truth is they did not fall alone. Their followers enabled their transformation. They protected them from criticism, defended their mistakes, and refused to acknowledge the cracks in their leadership. A true leader does not need blind devotion. They need honesty, accountability, and people willing to challenge them when they go astray. And true followers do not serve out of fear. They serve with wisdom, discernment, and the courage to stand for what is right. Because when devotion replaces critical thinking, the chosen one is no longer being guided by a higher power. They are only being guided by their own reflection. It begins with purpose. The chosen one believes they have been set apart, given a divine mission, and entrusted with wisdom beyond the ordinary. They feel a deep sense of calling, a responsibility to lead, to guide, to bring light to others. At first, this purpose humbles them. They serve with sincerity, knowing that they are merely a vessel. But then something shifts. As admiration grows, so does their belief in their own greatness. People listen to them, hang on their every word, and treat their presence as sacred. With each act of worship, the chosen one begins to see themselves not just as a messenger, but as something more. They are not simply guided by God, they are the guide. They are not just speaking truth, they are the truth. This is the birth of the Messiah complex. A chosen one, suffering from this illusion, no longer believes they are human in the same way others are. Their failures are not real failures, they are misunderstandings. Their flaws are not flaws, they are divine mysteries. If they are challenged, it is because people are too blind to see the truth. If they are questioned, it is an attack against God Himself. With time, their actions become more reckless. They no longer seek wisdom from others because they believe they already possess ultimate wisdom. They no longer feel bound by morality because they believe their choices are divinely justified. They do not just expect loyalty, they demand it. And the most dangerous part? They do not see themselves as narcissistic, manipulative, or power-hungry. In their mind, they are sacrificing for the greater good. They are misunderstood prophets suffering for their divine mission. Anyone who opposes them is either weak, jealous, or lost. This is where a chosen one stops being a leader and becomes a tyrant. True chosen ones do not seek to be worshipped. They remain humble, knowing they are servants, not gods. Because the moment they start believing they are above others, they are no longer serving a higher power. They are only serving their own reflection. Power is intoxicating. It gives influence, control, and a sense of purpose that is difficult to let go of. For a chosen one, someone who believes they have been divinely selected for a higher purpose, power is not just a privilege, it is proof of their calling. It validates their identity, their superiority, and their connection to something greater than themselves. But when cracks begin to form, when their influence is threatened, when people start questioning their authority, fear creeps in. The fear of losing power is not just about losing status. It feels like losing divine favor, losing purpose, losing everything. And for someone who has built their entire existence around being chosen, this is unbearable. That fear can drive them to extreme lengths to hold on to what they believe is rightfully theirs. At first, the tactics may be subtle. A chosen one might manipulate their followers through guilt, reminding them that doubting their leadership is the same as doubting God. They might twist spiritual teachings to reinforce their authority, claiming that obedience to them is a sign of faith, while questioning them is a sign of rebellion. They may surround themselves with only the most loyal supporters, ensuring that anyone who expresses doubt is silenced, removed, or branded as an enemy. But as the threat to their power grows, so does their desperation. What starts as manipulation and can turn into intimidation. Those who challenge their authority may face public humiliation, accusations of betrayal, or even spiritual condemnation. Chosen one may create fear among their followers, warning them of divine punishment if they stray, convincing them that leaving their leadership is the same as walking away from truth itself. Some may go even further, engaging in outright deception, fabricating miracles, faking divine revelations, or spreading lies to maintain their grip on their followers. The most dangerous aspect of this fear-driven behavior is that the chosen one often does not see themselves as corrupt. They believe they are fighting for a greater cause, that their actions are justified in the name of their divine mission. They convince themselves that any opposition is part of a test, an attack by dark forces trying to destroy them. This paranoia grows until they no longer see people as individuals with free will, but as pieces in a game, loyal followers to protect or threats to eliminate. They may go to unimaginable lengths to hold on to their position, willing to sacrifice relationships, morality, and even their own sanity just to remain in power. The irony is that in their quest to keep control, they become the very thing they once stood against. Their leadership, which may have started with sincerity, turns into tyranny. Their wisdom turns into arrogance. Their faith turns into fear. And instead of being a true chosen one, they become a ruler consumed by their own reflection, desperate to never see it shatter. A true prophecy is meant to reveal, to guide, to inspire faith in something greater than human understanding. But for some chosen ones, prophecy is not just a message from the divine. It is a tool, a weapon, a way to shape reality in their favor. When someone believes they are the direct mouthpiece of a higher power, their words carry immense weight. People listen, they obey, they change their actions based on what has been foretold. And in that influence lies the temptation to not just predict the future, but to create it, bending reality to align with their vision. At first, it may seem harmless. A chosen one declares that a great trial is coming, that their followers must remain faithful. When hardships inevitably arrive because life is full of challenges, they claim it as proof that the prophecy was true. They say, "See, I warned you. This is exactly as I said it would be." The more their predictions appear to come true, the more unquestionable their authority becomes. But over time, subtle predictions are no longer enough. The chosen one may begin to ensure their prophecies are fulfilled. If they foresee betrayal, they may push someone to the edge, isolating them until they finally break away, confirming the prophecy. If they predict an attack, they may provoke enemies into striking first, making their warning seem even more accurate. In the most extreme cases, they may create disasters, conflicts, or crises just to prove they were right all along. The prophecy was never a divine revelation, it was a carefully orchestrated plan. This self-fulfilling manipulation is dangerous because it feels real to those involved. Followers believe they are witnessing true signs and wonders, unaware that they are being led down a path designed to reinforce the chosen one's power. Even when doubts arise, fear keeps them silent. What if the prophecy is real? What if questioning it means defying a divine plan? And so they continue to believe, to follow, to surrender their will to someone who no longer serves a higher power, but only their own vision of destiny. The line between true prophecy and self-fulfilling manipulation is a thin one, and once it is crossed, the chosen one is no longer leading. They are controlling. They are no longer revealing truth, they are constructing illusions. And in the end, they are not serving God or a higher purpose, but only themselves. For the chosen one, power is more than influence, it is identity. It is the proof that they are special, divinely anointed, set apart from the rest of humanity. But what happens when that power begins to crumble? When the illusion they carefully built starts to crack? When the followers who once hung on their every word begin to question? The fall of a chosen one is never sudden. It is a slow unraveling, a collapse that begins long before the world sees it. At first, they deny the warning signs. A few whispers of doubt are dismissed as rebellion, a test of faith. When trusted followers start leaving, they brand them as traitors. When their prophecies fail, they twist their words to claim they were misunderstood. They fight to hold on, tightening their grip, using fear, manipulation, and even deception to maintain control. But power built on control is fragile. The moment fear loses its hold, when people stop believing, everything begins to fall apart. The true nature of the chosen one is revealed not in their rise, but in their fall. Some descend into paranoia, convinced that unseen forces are conspiring against them. They lash out at former allies, accusing them of betrayal, unwilling to accept that their downfall is of their own making. Others refuse to accept defeat, desperately clinging to whatever scraps of influence remain, making more and more outrageous claims in a last attempt to regain authority. Some even attempt to create chaos. If they cannot rule, they will destroy everything around them. But the most tragic ones are those who, in their final moments of power, realize the truth. That they were not invincible. That they were not divinely untouchable. That they were never as special as they believed. When the followers are gone, when the stage is empty, when the voice of admiration turns to silence, they are left with nothing but themselves, and the unbearable weight of who they truly are. Some fade into obscurity, a cautionary tale of arrogance and self-delusion. Others try to rebuild, but without the illusion of divine favor, they are just another person trying to find meaning. The fall of the chosen is not just about losing power, it is about confronting the truth. And for some, that truth is the most terrifying fate of all. Throughout history, there have been individuals who claimed divine favor, rising to great power while convincing others that they were chosen for a higher purpose. Some of these leaders were true visionaries, guiding people toward enlightenment and progress. But others, intoxicated by their own perceived destiny, fell into dangerous patterns of manipulation, control, and self-destruction. The line between divine guidance and unchecked ego is thin, and those who crossed it have left behind a legacy of both awe and caution. The pharaohs of Egypt, rulers as gods. Ancient Egypt was built on the belief that the pharaoh was more than just a king. He was a living god. Pharaohs were seen as the bridge between humanity and the divine, the ones who ensured cosmic balance. But absolute power often breeds absolute arrogance. Many pharaohs demanded worship, erecting massive statues and temples in their honor, expecting unwavering obedience. While some ruled wisely, others fell into tyranny, convinced of their own invincibility. The fall of pharaohs like Akhenaten, who declared himself the sole voice of God and forced radical religious changes, shows how dangerous it can be when a leader believes their will is the only truth. The rise and fall of Napoleon. Bonaparte Napoleon was not a religious prophet, but he believed he was destined for greatness, almost divinely anointed to rule. His rise was swift, his leadership brilliant, and his power unmatched. At first, he claimed to serve the ideals of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, and fraternity. But as his victories grew, so did his ego. He crowned himself Emperor of France, literally taking the crown from the Pope's hands to place it on his own head, a symbolic act declaring that no one, not even God's representative on earth, had authority over him. His sense of invincibility led him to reckless decisions, including his disastrous invasion of Russia. His eventual downfall was not just military defeat, but the collapse of the illusion that he was unstoppable. Like many before him, he had convinced himself that he was untouchable until reality proved otherwise. Jim Jones and the tragedy of Jonestown. Few figures in modern history demonstrate the dangers of unchecked spiritual leadership like Jim Jones. Initially, he was seen as a charismatic preacher advocating for social justice and racial equality. He convinced his followers that he was divinely chosen, that he alone could lead them to salvation. Over time, his teachings became more extreme, and his paranoia grew. He isolated his followers, controlled their lives, and demanded complete loyalty. When doubts arose, he silenced them through fear. When authorities questioned his actions, he fled with his followers to the remote settlement of Jonestown in Guyana. The most horrifying proof of his manipulative power came in 1978, when he orchestrated a mass suicide, convincing over 900 of his followers to drink poison, including children. To the very end, he maintained the illusion that they were fulfilling a divine destiny. His story serves as a chilling reminder of how a leader, once seen as a savior, can become a destroyer when consumed by their own belief in being chosen. The fall of Adolf Hitler, a leader who believed in his own prophecy. Adolf Hitler's rise to power was built on the idea that he was destined to restore Germany's greatness. He presented himself as a messianic figure, the one who would lead his people into a new golden age. He surrounded himself with propaganda that painted him as almost superhuman, chosen by fate. Those who opposed him were treated as enemies of destiny itself. But like all leaders who fall into this trap, his arrogance led to reckless decisions. His belief in his own invincibility caused him to overextend, to ignore warnings, to push forward even when defeat was inevitable. When his empire crumbled, he refused to accept reality. In the end, he chose destruction over surrender, retreating into his bunker and taking his own life, rather than facing a world where he was no longer the chosen one. David Koresh and the Waco siege. Another example of a self-proclaimed prophet leading his followers into disaster is David Koresh, leader of the Branch Davidians. Like Jim Jones, he convinced his followers that he was divinely appointed. He claimed to be the final prophet, the only one who could interpret the book of Revelation correctly. His control over his followers was absolute. He dictated their lives, their marriages, and even their children. When authorities began investigating him for illegal activities, he framed it as a test of faith. His paranoia grew, and his followers prepared for what they believed was an apocalyptic battle. The standoff with the FBI in 1993 ended in tragedy when their compound was engulfed in flames, killing dozens of men, women, and children. Koresh's belief in his own divine role ultimately led to the destruction of himself and his people. The pattern of the fallen chosen. While these figures come from different eras, cultures, and belief systems, the pattern remains the same. First, they believe they are special, set apart from others. Then, they convince people of their divine mission, surrounding themselves with loyal followers who feed their ego. Over time, they stop listening to dissent, seeing any opposition as an attack on their destiny. Their confidence turns into arrogance, their leadership into control, and their wisdom into manipulation. And when the world refuses to bend to their will, when reality shatters the illusion they created, they fall, some into obscurity, others into destruction. History has shown us time and again that those who claim divine favor must be watched carefully. True leaders inspire without demanding worship. True prophets guide without controlling. And those who claim to speak for God must never forget that they are still human. Because when a chosen one starts believing they are the divine rather than a servant of it, their path will always end in disaster. Power changes people. When someone believes they are divinely chosen, it can elevate them to greatness or drag them into darkness. Many who start with good intentions fall into the trap of their own ego, mistaking divine purpose for personal superiority. The question is, once someone crosses that line, can they ever return? Can a chosen one, blinded by their own self-importance, truly find redemption? History tells us that the journey back is difficult, but not impossible. Some leaders, prophets, and self-proclaimed messiahs have been consumed by their own narcissism, believing they were above others, untouchable, unquestionable. They isolated themselves, silenced their critics, and surrounded themselves with those who only reinforced their illusion of greatness. But when their world started to crumble, when their followers turned away, when their power was taken, when reality forced them to face their own reflection, some were able to change, while others sank deeper into ruin. The road to redemption. A hard but possible path. True redemption requires more than regret. It demands deep self-awareness, a willingness to acknowledge past mistakes, and most importantly, a complete dismantling of the false image they built around themselves. A narcissistic chosen one must learn to let go of their need for control, their hunger for worship, and their belief that they are superior to others. This is not an easy transformation. It requires humility, something they may have abandoned long ago. Some have done it. Leaders who once ruled with arrogance have, in their final years, chosen to walk a different path. Some prophets have admitted their mistakes, seeking forgiveness instead of power. Even historical figures who once wielded absolute authority have stepped down, choosing peace over dominance. But these cases are rare, and the deeper someone has fallen into the illusion of being untouchable, the harder it is to escape. The cycle of ruin. When redemption is rejected. For many, the moment of crisis does not bring clarity, it brings paranoia, anger, and desperation. Instead of self-reflection, they double down, blaming others, twisting the narrative to maintain their control. They refuse to see their downfall as a result of their own actions, instead calling it a test, an attack, or even proof of their divine status. This is the danger of unchecked narcissism, the inability to accept fault, the refusal to change, and the belief that they are always right. We see this in leaders who lose power but refuse to step away gracefully. We see it in those who, when questioned, lash out instead of listening. We see it in those who, even in their final days, cannot let go of the image they created of themselves. These are the ones who do not find redemption. These are the ones who do not find redemption. These are the ones who, rather than returning to their true purpose, are swallowed by the illusion they created. Can they be saved? The answer is both simple and complicated. Yes, a chosen one, consumed by narcissism, can find their way back, but only if they are willing to see themselves as they truly are, not as they have convinced others to see them. They must break down the walls they built, step away from the throne they placed themselves on, and embrace the one thing they have avoided for so long: humility. But history has shown us that few take this path. Most, when given the choice between redemption and ruin, choose to cling to their power, even as it slips through their fingers, because for some it is easier to believe in their own invincibility than to face the truth that they were never meant to rule, only to serve. To be chosen is a sacred responsibility, not a license for self-importance. Yet throughout history, many who believe they are divinely appointed fall into the trap of pride. Instead of embracing their calling with humility, they see themselves as superior, set apart, and above others. But is that what it truly means to be chosen? A divine calling is never about personal glory. It is about service, sacrifice, and purpose greater than oneself. The moment someone starts using their chosen status to elevate themselves rather than uplift others, they have already strayed from their path. True divine purpose is not about commanding power, demanding loyalty, or being untouchable. It is about guiding, teaching, and leading by example. When purpose turns into pride. At first, many chosen ones begin with humility, unsure why they were called, yet determined to fulfill their role. But power has a way of corrupting even the purest hearts. Praise turns into entitlement. Respect turns into expectation. Soon they start believing their authority is unquestionable, that they are beyond reproach. Instead of using their influence to help others, they start using it to maintain control. The shift is subtle but dangerous. What starts as confidence in one's mission turns into arrogance. They begin to believe they are not just chosen by God, but that they are God's voice, beyond mistake, beyond correction. Their identity becomes so entwined with their status that they no longer serve a divine purpose, they serve themselves. True leadership versus false authority. A true chosen one does not seek control but guidance. They understand that their wisdom is not their own but given to them to share. They lead with love, not fear. They uplift rather than suppress. They listen rather than demand. But a false leader, blinded by pride, mistakes fear for respect and obedience for devotion. They believe their authority is absolute, that to question them is to question God Himself. This is where the true test of being chosen lies. Do they remain humble, always aware that their role is one of service? Or do they let their pride consume them, believing they are greater than the mission they were given? The responsibility of being chosen. Being chosen is not about personal power. It is about responsibility, discipline, and selflessness. The greatest leaders in history were not those who sought to be exalted, but those who chose to walk humbly, knowing their purpose was never about themselves. The moment a chosen one starts seeking personal glory, they have already lost the very thing that made them chosen in the first place. True divinity is found in humility, not in pride. Those who are truly chosen do not need to declare it. Their actions speak for themselves. Power, purpose, and divine favor, these are words that carry immense weight. To be chosen by God to hold a position of great influence is not a privilege to be exploited, but a responsibility to be honored. Yet history has shown us how easily this sacred calling can be twisted into something dangerous. When divine purpose is overshadowed by ego, when leadership becomes a tool for self-glorification rather than service, the result is often destruction, isolation, and ultimately downfall. We have explored the fine line between confidence and arrogance, the dangers of feeling untouchable, and the way blind devotion enables unchecked narcissism. We have seen how power, when unchecked, can lead even the most righteous down a path of self-delusion and control. But here's the truth. Being chosen is not about dominance. It is about responsibility. It is not a throne to sit upon, but a duty to uphold. History has proven that unchecked power always leads to downfall. If we wish to break the cycle, we must hold ourselves and others accountable. We must recognize when leadership is no longer about guidance, but about control. We must reject blind devotion and instead seek truth, wisdom, and genuine humility. This is your call to awareness. Do not be deceived by golden words and glowing crowns. Look deeper, question boldly,